Wake up, tennis world, because we have a breaking story that is going to shake you to your core and completely redefine your morning. If you have ever harbored even a shred of skepticism regarding the claim that tennis is the most mentally excruciating and physically punishing sport on the planet, listen closely. If you are the type of fan who operates under the mistaken belief that the superior athlete is the one hitting better shots and winning more points, is destined to walk away with the trophy, or if you think a cold, hard spreadsheet can predict is the madness of human competition, I need you to stop right now. Put down your coffee, silence your notifications, turn your volume all the way up and lock in, because what I am about to share with you defies every conventional law of sporting logic. The drama that just concluded at the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open is not merely a box score you check and move on from. It is a historic anomaly that transcends the game itself. What we just watched unfold was effectively a glitch in the simulation. It was a statistical impossibility that somehow, against all odds and reason, clawed its way into existence on center court. We are talking about a narrative that spits in the face of probability, mocks the laws of mathematics, and challenges every single assumption we hold dear regarding meritocracy and fairness in professional athletics. We are dissecting an absolutely heart-stopping round of 16 battle between the battle-hardened Belarusian veteran Aliaksandra Sasnovich and the 20-year-old rising star from the Philippines Alexandra Eala. Before we even whisper the final score, I need to guide you through the forensic evidence, because the raw numbers tell a story that is beautifully, tragically deceptive. If I sat you down and told you that player A racked up a staggering 121 total points, while player B could only scrape together 111, a massive deficit of 10 full points, who would you bet your paycheck on? There is not a single person watching this who would hesitate. You would declare player A the undisputed victor without a second thought. Let's double down on that. If I told you player A captured 16 total games while player B only managed to win 15, and I asked you to point to the winner, you would say, it is obviously player A. Let's go even deeper into the stats. Imagine player A firing down 5 unreturnable aces against 0, boasting a far higher success rate on their first serve and riding a wave of momentum with a run of 8 consecutive points compared to a meager 4. You would likely be willing to bet your house, your car, and your life savings that player A dominated that match in every conceivable timeline. Well, Aliaksandra Sasnovich was player A. She was by every objective measure the better tennis player today. She hit cleaner shots, she dictated the rallies, she looked sharper, she controlled the geometry of the court, and owned the baseline. If you fed these stats into a computer, it would tell you she won 99 times out of 100. But here is the twist: she is not the one advancing to the quarterfinals. Alexandra Eala is. This is a result that is going to baffle sports scientists and break the brains of gamblers everywhere. Eala walked into a buzzsaw, got statistically pummeled in almost every category, yet somehow emerged from the smoke with the only number that actually matters written next to her name, the letter W. The final scoreline reads 2-6, 6-4, 7-6 in favor of the resilient underdog. That third set tiebreak victory does not feel like a standard sports win. It feels like a grand heist. This was armed robbery committed in broad daylight with a tennis racket and a will to survive that simply defied description. So today we are not just recapping a match. We are performing an autopsy on a sporting miracle to understand how this happened. We are going to investigate exactly how a young prospect facing a veteran who was aggressively outplaying her for hours managed to navigate the razor's edge of the scoring system and snatch victory from the jaws of certain defeat. We need to have a serious conversation about the tennis version of Simpson's paradox, a phenomenon where a player can lose the battle for total points, yet somehow win the war for the sets. We need to talk about the 17 breakpoint chances Eala manufactured. That number 17 represents pure, unadulterated grit. And we absolutely must discuss the fact that she hit 0 aces, not 1. That means she had no freebies. She had to grind, run, and suffer for every single point without the luxury of a bailout serve. This match illustrates the chasm between playing beautiful tennis and knowing how to win. It stands as a monument to the ability to endure a torrential downpour of pressure that lasted for 3 agonizing sets. While Sasnovich was busy painting the lines and polishing her statistics, Eala was down in the mud, bruised and battered, fighting for the ugly points, the exhaustive rallies, and the moments that actually decided the outcome. We have a mountain of analysis to get through in this update, because this is more than just a game. The context of this round of 16 victory sends shockwaves through the landscape of Asian tennis. Eala is shouldering the heavy hopes of the Philippines, a nation desperate for a global icon to rally behind. Today, she proved she has the iron stomach required for the big stage. Conversely, for Sasnovich, this is the specific brand of defeat that haunts your dreams. To walk into the locker room, look at the stat sheet and see you were +10 in points and +1 in games, yet you are the one booking a flight home that is a psychological wound that does not heal quickly. So, strap yourselves in. We are diving deep into the mechanics of this upset. We are going to break down the collapse in the first set, the strategic pivot in the second, and the suffocating tension of that final tiebreak where experience crumbled before youthful fearlessness. This is not just news. This is a masterclass in mental fortitude. This is the ultimate case study in refusing to lose. Let's strip this contest down to its bare bones. To truly appreciate the miracle Alexandra Eala pulled off, we have to respect the caliber of the opponent she defeated. Aliaksandra Sasnovich is a legitimate threat. She has been ranked inside the world's top 30 for a reason. She knows how to survive into the second week of majors. Her game is built on flat, laser-like ground strokes that stay low and skid, making defense a nightmare for anyone on the other side. She is an expert at robbing her opponents of their rhythm and time. Furthermore, entering this tournament as a lucky loser, she was playing with house money completely loose and free of pressure. When this match started, it looked like a total mismatch. The first set was a demolition job. Sasnovich swept it 6-2. If you analyze the opening hour, it was one-way traffic with no exit ramps. The stats show a maximum streak of 4 consecutive games won, and I can assure you that run of dominance happened right there in the first stanza. Sasnovich was seeing the ball like it was the size of a watermelon. She was stepping inside the baseline, taking the ball early and dictating every inch of the court. Eala, in contrast, looked completely overwhelmed. Her signature lefty forehand was being rushed, targeted, and broken down. She was spraying unforced errors all over the stadium. She was pinned 5 or 6 feet behind the baseline, frantically scrambling just to keep the ball in play. If you were glued to the live probability tickers as this match unfolded, the betting markets were overwhelmingly backing Sasnovich, cementing her status as the monumental favorite to run away with the victory. And quite frankly, nobody could reasonably criticize the bookmakers for drawing that conclusion given the circumstances. Conceding the opening set by a margin of 6-2 on such a rapid hardcourt surface usually signifies that the end is near. It represents a massive, nearly impossible mountain to scale. However, this specific moment of crushing adversity is exactly where the strategic brilliance of Eala began to illuminate the court. We observe this pattern constantly with the rising stars of the tour. When they find themselves swamped in the early stages, panic tends to hijack their decision-making. Their instinctual response is almost always to ramp up the velocity and start wildly swinging for the fences. They try to match their opponent's heavy artillery shot for shot, chasing glorious winners and aces that simply do not exist in their current repertoire. But Eala demonstrated a level of composure and maturity far beyond her age. She steadfastly refused to take that bait. Whether it was an intuitive gut check or a calculated analytical read of the court speed, she accepted the harsh reality that she was not going to blast Sasnovich off the baseline. The post-match data confirms this discipline. She did not record a single ace throughout the entire duration of the contest. There was not one single ace to give her a free point when she needed it. She understood with crystal clarity that there were no free gifts being handed out tonight. As a result, she completely dismantled her original game plan and forced the match to be played strictly on her own terms. As they marched into the second set, Eala ceased her attempts to beat Sasnovich at a power-hitting contest and instead dragged the veteran into the deep, murky waters of a grueling physical war of attrition. That strategic pivot paid massive dividends, completely flipping the narrative to secure the set 6-4. So, the question remains, how does an athlete transform a one-sided battering into a gritty back-alley street fight? The answer is buried within the breakpoint analytics. If you choose to remember only one aspect of this tactical breakdown, let it be this specific metric. Alexandra Eala managed to manufacture a mind-boggling 17 breakpoint opportunities over the course of the night. 17 separate chances. To contextualize that figure, generating that volume of opportunities in a standard 3-set regulation match is absolutely astronomical and unheard of at this level. It implies that Sasnovich was rarely afforded a moment of peace on the baseline. Eala was perpetually breathing down her neck, applying suffocating pressure and demanding perfection just to survive a basic service hold. Now we must give Sasnovich immense credit for her defensive resilience, as she managed to save 12 of those dangerous situations with clutch play. However, the cumulative psychological burden of staring down 17 potential breaks is utterly exhausting for any player. Imagine trying to hold a barricaded door shut while a heavy battering ram is relentlessly pounding against it from the outside. Eventually, the wood is going to splinter and crack. Inevitably, the fortification crumbles. Eala capitalized on 5 of those cracks in the armor, a conversion rate hovering around 29%. It is not the most beautiful statistic, but on this particular night, it was exactly what was required to survive. She prioritized sheer volume of chances and stubborn persistence over clinical efficiency. She was relentless. When we shift our focus to the other side of the net with Sasnovich, a completely different story emerges. The veteran powerhouse held 11 break opportunities and successfully converted 6 of them. If we are looking strictly at the mathematics, she was the sharper, more lethal executioner when the window of opportunity cracked open. She was converting at a significantly higher clip without a doubt, but she failed to generate a sufficient volume of those chances in the late stages because Eala completely locked down her own service games. We need to drill deeper into the service metrics as they perfectly visualize the sharp tactical divergence between these two competitors. Sasnovich landed 69% of her first serves, while Eala sat slightly higher at 71%. The critical difference: Eala opted for safety over speed, taking pace off the ball to guarantee it landed inside the box. This was a deliberate, conscious choice. She banked everything on her ability to grind out the long rallies from the baseline, confident she could win the point, provided she neutralized the initial return. Conversely, Sasnovich played a high-octane, high-risk brand of tennis, firing 5 aces, but offsetting that aggression with 5 costly double faults. She was constantly painting the lines and living on the razor's edge. While that aggressive posture secured the first set, those 5 double faults, 3 of which occurred during absolute critical high-stress moments, proved to be the fatal wounds in her campaign. Eala, remaining disciplined and composed, only coughed up 3 double faults. In a contest decided by such microscopic margins, handing over 2 fewer free points effectively alters the entire destiny of the match. Everything culminated in the third set, the final decider. This is the crucible where true contenders separate themselves from the pretenders, and reputations are forged in fire. By this stage of the evening, the physical exhaustion is palpable in the arena. Both women had been sprinting from sideline to sideline for more than 2 hours. That final set essentially became a microcosm of the entire war. You had Sasnovich holding the clear statistical advantage regarding raw firepower winners, hit, and total points accumulated on the scoreboard. Standing opposite her was Eala, who held the upper hand in sheer grit and mental fortitude. Fittingly, it went to a tiebreak at 6 games, all perhaps the cruelest method of elimination in the sport. After battling through 12 grueling games, covering miles of distance and striking hundreds of shots, the fate of the entire match boils down to a chaotic sprint to 7 points. Check the tiebreak win column in the history books. Sasnovich sits at 0. Eala stepped up to the plate and claimed the victory in that sudden death shootout. The fact that Sasnovich had actually won 10 more total points throughout the match became instantly irrelevant. That statistical disparity evaporated into thin air. The scoreboard was effectively reset to 0. The only thing that mattered was execution in the immediate here and now, and that is precisely where Eala shined brightest. Maybe it was driven by a youthful hunger to prove she belongs on the big stage. Or perhaps it was simply a lack of scar tissue from previous heartbreaks. But Eala attacked the tiebreak with a fearless intensity that Sasnovich simply could not replicate when it mattered most. The tiebreak concluded 7 points to 5, with Eala barely scraping by to steal the win. When you review the receiving points, 153 for Sasnovich versus 151 for Eala, the gap is practically negligible. Once again, the raw numbers suggest Sasnovich was the superior returner. Even in service points won, Sasnovich led 68-60. On paper, she was the better server and the better player. But this highlights the incredibly unique and sometimes unfair nature of tennis scoring. It is not cumulative like basketball or football. It is strictly compartmentalized. You can absolutely obliterate an opponent in a single game, winning 4 points to 0, and your reward on the scoreboard is exactly 1 game. Meanwhile, your opponent might struggle through 6 deuces, winning a messy 12 points to 10, and they receive the exact same reward, 1 game. Sasnovich's victories looked dominant, while Eala's holds were desperate scrapes. Eala was operating in survival mode, but in the official standings, a narrow escape holds the exact same numerical value as a pristine dominant blowout. This is the textbook definition of winning the big points. Eala secured the specific rallies that closed out games and converted the vital breaks when the pressure was highest. She won the final decisive point of the night. Sasnovich, on the other hand, was winning the points in the middle of games, the ones at 15 all that carry less weight. Those are the empty calorie points that pad your statistics sheet but fail to punch your ticket into the quarterfinals of the tournament. Finally, we absolutely have to highlight the win percentage on second serves, which is arguably the most critical metric in professional tennis today. When the first serve fails and the pressure mounts, can you deliver? Sasnovich won 59% of those points, while Eala was right on her heels at 57%. They were statistically identical in this regard. This proves that despite Eala's lack of raw power and absence of free aces, her second delivery was far from a weakness to be exploited. She utilized superior placement and heavy jarring spin, likely deploying that tricky lefty kick serve to prevent Sasnovich from stepping in and teeing off on the ball. Eala managed to play just enough defense to keep her head above water, shielding her weaknesses effectively enough to keep her tournament dreams alive. When we dig deep into the analytics, the data regarding consecutive points won exposes a truly bizarre statistical split between these two athletes. When Sasnovich was firing on all cylinders, she was virtually untouchable, effortlessly rattling off runs of 8 unanswered points. That translates to 2 consecutive love games. A level of utter supremacy that usually indicates a blowout victory is underway on the court. On the flip side of the coin, Eala never found that kind of rhythm, failing to string together more than 4 winners at any single point in the contest. There were no purple patches or hot streaks for her. Instead, she was just there doggedly, annoyingly, and relentlessly hanging on in every single exchange. She transformed into the problem that Sasnovich just could not solve, lingering in every point and refusing to give her opponent a single moment of peace or rhythm. Every time Sasnovich thought she had finally broken Eala's will with one of those dominant 8-point surges, the Filipina sensation would punch right back. Eala would scrap her way through a grueling 30-40 point, completely shifting the momentum and emotional gravity of the fight. A victory of this magnitude does more than just advance a player to the next round. It throws the entire bracket into chaos and sends a clear warning across the draw. Eala has officially graduated from being a hyped up-and-comer to a legitimate closer when the lights are brightest. We are witnessing the rise of a fighter who can look a seasoned tour veteran in the eye, take a beating on the stat sheet in almost every category, and still find a way through the madness to be the one smiling at the handshake. Looking across the net, this result is a devastating tragedy of efficiency for Sasnovich. When you are converting 54% of your breakpoint chances, specifically capitalizing on 6 out of 11 opportunities, that is usually considered a spectacular day at the office. In 99% of professional matches, if you manage to break your opponent's serve 6 times, you are already packing your bags for the next round with a win in your pocket. But today, she ran headfirst into a force of nature that simply had no interest in respecting the laws of probability or the logic of mathematics. Sasnovich is going to have nightmares when she watches the replay of that third set tiebreaker, especially those critical moments at 5-all or 4-all. She will see that when the pressure peaked, she hesitated, she blinked exactly when she needed to be bold. In the unforgiving arena of the WTA Tour, if you flinch against a warrior like Alexandra Eala, your ticket to the next round gets cancelled immediately. So, what does this actually mean for the rest of the tournament? What does a win like this signal for the broader hierarchy of the tour in the 2026 season? Above all else, it solidifies Eala's reputation as an absolute mental giant between the lines. The grit she showed out there today isn't something you can pick up at a prestigious tennis academy. A coach can fix your forehand mechanics, teach you a kick serve, or drill footwork until you drop. But there is not a coach on earth who can teach that innate refusal to die when every single number on the scoreboard says you should be losing. That type of spirit is genetic. It comes from the soul. That resilience is born from a deep competitive furnace, the specific trait that separates the good players from the legends. And today, Eala proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that she has the heart of a champion. Furthermore, this match highlights the brutal nature of the lucky loser slot. Sasnovich was gifted a second chance at life in this event, and to her credit, she played high-caliber tennis that proved she deserved to be on this court. She put up numbers worthy of a top 30 seed today, but tennis is a notoriously savage and indifferent sport. It does not care about your execution or how beautiful your ground strokes looked. The only thing this sport respects is who wins the final point of the match. Sasnovich is leaving Abu Dhabi playing some of the best tennis of her life, yet she walks away with nothing but a heartbreakingly superior spreadsheet. Finally, this dramatic finish sets the table for what is guaranteed to be a mouth-watering quarterfinal clash. Eala is now battle-tested in the truest sense. She has logged the heavy mileage, stared down disaster, and shown the world she knows how to win ugly when her A game isn't there. A player who can snatch a victory while playing their B game, or statistically even their C game, is arguably the most terrifying threat in any tournament draw. When the rest of the locker room looks at this result, they won't care about the 111 total points Sasnovich won. The only thing they will see is the W next to Eala's name. They will see a relentless adversary who simply refuses to go away. As we wrap up our broadcast tonight, keep this specific match in your memory banks the next time you look at a box score. Don't just glance at the ace count or the total winners. You have to read between the lines to understand the war that actually took place. Focus on the struggle and the will to survive. Today, Sasnovich might have won the battle of the calculator, but Alexandra Eala won the actual tennis match. This has been a special breaking news update from our courtside team, bringing you the narratives that the raw data often ignores. We have just watched a massive statistical anomaly, a total defiance of logic, and the rapid ascent of a star who just doesn't know how to quit. I am your host, signing off for now. We will see you for the quarterfinals, where hopefully the math starts to make a little more sense. But in tennis, as we saw so clearly today, you can never rely on the numbers to tell you the whole story.